we go. We will start in a minute. I'm just going to get some music going. And then we will be off to the races. All right. So let's go see what we were doing last week and check back in on Dev Helper. So oh, I bet I didn't check that in. That sucks. We're gonna have to do that over again. Bet I deleted the. Let me go look at it. I bet I deleted it. Oh, that sucks. Oh, no, it's right here. So one of the cool things about Daytona that will apparently totally save you one day is that you can see that this is the stream from last week. The changes are still in there and they're not pushed. So we are going to go ahead and fix that. That's good. I thought I lost those things. So it's nice that they're still there. Let's go ahead and take a screenshot of that. That would probably be the cool. All right. Just getting this environment up and going again, and we'll get right back into it. If you ever see me wrap up a stream without pushing, remind me to push. So I'm gonna go find. I was playing around with this tool, which is my assumption is because this is a function of x that it's f of x, but not sure that that's how you pronounce it. Which is a interactive JSON tool so that you can basically get through a pile of JSON and search it, collapse different levels so that it's easier to look at. And it has a relatively easy install. So you can install via brew, or you can install this to the binary, or you can build it yourself. And so I was thinking this would be a good example of something to use. So if we actually go look at this install script. Oh, for whatever reason, downloads it. I'm going to go ahead and switch to the desktop so that y'all can see this. Again, piles of bash. So calculate out, here's a hard-coded version. We should probably fix that. Get the architecture, generate basically the URL that you're going to install, and then install it and move it into user local bin. Super simple, easy to understand what it's doing. It's interesting because it is doing a little install counter, which is fine. It doesn't call out that it's going to call it, but we can remove that. but a lot of this we actually, you know, notionally this is stuff that we would want to use. So let's use this as an example of something that we want to do. So we go back to the browser, back to Daytona. Still loading. It's interesting. I wonder why that's happening. Oh, it's so annoying. Just stop telling me that you're logging in. 1Password's great, except when it's annoying. Interesting. Well, hopefully this will get started here any second now and we can get going. Let's just test to see if a new Daytona will launch faster. This should launch, and I don't know why it's not. So might ping engineering here in a minute. Let's see. All right, so this is going. All right, that's up and running. Okay, so Okay, so just pinging folks, see if we figure out why that one's not started. This one is started, so let's go ahead and let's go ahead and I'm trying to think what we should do. We're just gonna go ahead and start again. And there are let's see. What do we want to do? So we want to go start doing some architecture bits. So let's go look at some dev container writing. So if we go to containers.dev and we go to the, we'll go to features. That makes sense. And we'll pick one of the, we'll pick a couple of these. So we'll say AWS CLI. Let's look at the common utilities. The GitHub CLI. Those all look reasonable. And these are all written by the dev container team. So let's go see how they do things. This is the weirdest thing. Like, this happens to me all the time now when I look at files in GitHub. So installing the AWS CLI, they put the public key in the script. They run apt-get. This is the same sort of check package. I have another command to validate the signature. Get the architecture. And they install it and they clean up the lists. So the reason that they're doing this is so that the image will be slightly smaller. One thing that I've noticed about dev container is the image sizes get very large. They're all well into a gig. Part of that is because they just install everything. You'll notice here they're still doing no recommends, but still. So let's pick some of these, because some of these we know we're gonna want. Like, we are gonna, this is also written only for, this is only written for Ubuntu, Debian Ubuntu. It's not written for like Alpine. It won't work. So we're gonna go back to the Daytona that is over here. We're gonna toss this in here because we're definitely gonna borrow these functions. It's interesting. They do the update anyway in this check packages. So it's sort of doing the update here and then doing it here again is actually redundant. So that's an interesting thing to notice. So let's go look at the common utils. So this is actually much bigger. They've got some snippets in here and just a lot more going on. So let's go look at this install. And So up here is the all of the variables that the feature is setting. And so do you want to install Zeesh? Do you want to configure Zeesh as the default shell? Install omyzeesh, upgrade the packages, set a username, set UID, GID. And this one actually does do Alpine. So that's really interesting. So, and then it execs the main shell. So they've got their, this is one of those things where everything is different. So instead of doing everything in the install script, they do part of it in the install script. Then they do some of it in the main, kick that out. And the main sets the same variables again, gets the current directory, installs various Debian packages that it's going to need. So this is everything in their common utilities. So man pages, LSB, JQ, unzips, the certificates, so wget and curl probably, GNU, GPG, SSH, some other just minor utilities. Then go grab libOSSL, older and newer versions. Interesting. And this is using some old school, like going back to old school Ubuntu and Debians. If Git's not there, make sure it is. Potentially add the not free packages across all the different flavors. Making sure that UTF is there for Zeesh. And then clean, and again, clean. So then, oh, if you're doing, if you detect Red Hat, then do some Red Hat magic. And if you detect Alpine, do Alpine magic. The script must run as root, so either sudo su or make it run as root. They use a marker file to see which steps have been run. Interesting. I'd like to see what that does in a minute. Let's keep looking. Hello to new joiners. Thanks for coming. Right now we are basically reading a bunch of existing dev container features and looking at their bash to see just how wildly different it is and see some ideas of what we want to do. Got a environment over here where we're also grabbing functions that we think are cool and we'll eventually work into our own. But let's go back. So it definitely does a bunch of detection for different flavors of Debian and Ubuntu, or we don't support it, which is interesting. And then it's looking for, so this is the automatic mode where it's looking to see different users that it might be set up for: dev container, VS Code, node and code spaces. And then if you find it, go ahead. That's actually the username. Otherwise, set up the username to be VS Code. That's if it's in automatic mode. Otherwise, it's going to be root. Create or update a non-root user to match the UID GID. So this is one of those things that is a little bit frustrating about dev container. Is I don't know where all this is documented, but this is just a bunch of magic. It's not magic in that it's just Linux, but like if we go look at the notes, so this should work with Debian, Ubuntu, Red Hat, Fedora, Rocky, Alpine. Most things, yeah. So by default, it uses GID UID 1000. You can customize some pieces, but that's it. So I don't know. It feels to me like there's an awful lot of magic occurring in here, but I guess they are calling out the username and GID and that kind of stuff. I think that this magic of the username, we're gonna need to take care of that too, because a lot of features get installed on top of random usernames, and one of the things that I saw was a challenge is if you want to take that user and you want to put something into their bash RC or their Zesh or whatever, it can be really challenging because for me at least, it was hard to understand, like the scripts all run as root, except that the user might be something different. So I think this is something that we will want to work on. So I think one of the things I'm going to do is I'll create an issue. We'll put a label in here, bug documentation, good first issue. Let's put this in the backlog. So we're going to say handle automatic user detection. We're definitely going to want to figure this part out. So if we go back to main, scroll back down here. There's also some magic to restore the path. There's so much magic. We're going to take this and we're going to basically going to run it down through. Wow, there's so much magic. Oh, wow. All right. Let's not get too lost in the deep magic. We're going to stop, say, automatic user detection is through here. Go back to the issue. Check out how add that issue to the Backlog. Sometime we want to do that. That's just a lot of work, and I don't think we're going to do it right now. Because right now we could just make everybody use common and let this pile of magic just get used over and over again. I think mostly I was just interested in like what's going on here. So here's another. This is to install the GitHub CLI, and you want to grab a version. So you're either going to grab latest or you're going to grab something specific. Are you going to get it directly from the release, or are you going to get it from somewhere else? And it looks like that somewhere else is a package. So this cleanup is pretty common. It's because it's a container, and this image, you want to keep some control of it. Yeah. I feel like this is going to be a really common thing. I'm going to put this over here. We're going to say put that here for now. Come back to it in a little bit. Yeah, I think this is a pretty common install the GPG key for. But you'll notice, like, here's an apt-get. So this apt-get command is not completely different, but it's different than this one. And so there's not, even within sort of the Microsoft world, there's not consistency here. So wow, there's a lot of magic just to find the correct version of a 3-part version number if it's not passed. So let's see. Like this person actually is pretty good at Bash because they're doing some deep. This should be a Python script. It's what it should be, or something else. It's readable, but it's very frustrating. So they're looking through the tags of the repository to grep for the regex, which includes the prefixed, the last part. So they grab the beginning of it, the last part. Yeah, they're using git tags to figure out what it was. Wow. So both of these things are likely magic to work around, versions or getting version strings or. So this check packages is a pretty check packages git find version from git tags. So they're going to reach inside of the releases for the CLI and find the most recent version for the CLI version. And then they're going to install it directly from GitHub release as from a Debian from GitHub. So if we go look at the GitHub, releases, we're going to see Yeah, so there's debs, and then there's just the binaries. So deb, RPM, and then a binary. So there's just a lot of, I think, okay, so we definitely want to clean up. Let's not get overwhelmed by the number of things that we would want. This is like, what are we really trying to solve? So I like this check packages. It's just an easy way. At some point, I want to make this check packages, Ubuntu check packages, Alpine check packages, Red Hat. Although I don't see Red Hat a lot, but it is something that we'll see. Let's see what else. Let's see what Go looks like. So this is very clearly the sort of the pattern is all of the variables that you're going to pass through from the feature are up here. They're doing more automatic username magic. So either if there's a remote user set, use that. Otherwise, so this, if there's remote user, use that. Otherwise, use automatic. And then this is, if there's a username, use that. Otherwise, use whatever the result of this was. It sort of stacks. So check for root. That's a pretty common. This restore env. Ensure that login shells get the correct path if the user updated the path using an environment variable. Man, I'd love to know what this is doing. Export path is getting appended in this restoring v, and it is, so if they updated the path, shell lc echo path, what do you, path equals the path, and you are, let's go look at bash variable substitution, because this seems like dark magic. All right, so what we're looking, so here's the default stuff that they just did. So if a parameter is unset or null, use the word. They're not doing offsets. Make this bigger for y'all. They're not expanding. Produce a pattern matched according to the rules below. Here we go. So parameter, pattern, string. The pattern is expanded to produce a pattern, just like in file name. It's expanded, and the longest match of pattern against it is replaced with the string. String undergoes tilde expansion, parameter and variable expansion, arithmetic expansion, command and process substitution, and quote removal. Okay. So we're looking for echo path. So we're basically looking for the entire path, and we're replacing it with the path. We're replacing it with, and they got that variable out. So export path is the same as the $path, except you're looking for the entire path, which you're going to replace with just $path. Yeah, I have no idea what that does. That's wild. Let's just see what it does in... Let's just see what it does if we go over here. We can blow up this environment so it doesn't matter. We can actually just try it out. Export path. We're just going to echo it anyway. So let's see. Echo $path. I think it's just so you can take the current path and then put it out to a file with all the right substitutions. I think that's all it is, but man, that is not intuitive to me what that does. So yeah, we all learn something new every day. That one is. And here's another. So this is Go again. So this is determining the appropriate user. Who is it? And if we go look at, we saw this in common, wherever common was. I think this was probably where common was. But yeah, this is, I think we're going to borrow this because this definitely is something that I hit last time. So we're going to say determine user. We're going to borrow this. That'll be useful. I could have used that in, actually, like I'll show you. So I've got my dev containers, my dev. If we go to Metcalf and go to dev container features, go look up the attune feature. So here's that. Here's the check packages. Oh, so I do a startup shell. So let's go back to that. So we go to tune, scripts, setup, check for string. We definitely going to want check for string. It's not the one I want. Setup shell. Again, another copy of check for string. I know I did some username magic somewhere. Oh, this is this directory. Yeah, so I was trying to figure out where the home directory was. And so in this case, I just used remote user home, which just happens to be something that gets set. And so that's where I wanted to put the bash scripts and the Z scripts. And so I ended up passing this around, but you'll see that, like, in order to make this work, because I did this where I appended a line to a script. Probably didn't need to, but this is one of those things, is it's really difficult to know, for me to know, because you don't actually have it in front of you. You know, it's all inside of a container, where this variable is, or when it's set and when it's not set. And so anyway, that would have made this a lot easier, because I was basically working around not knowing who my user was. And knowing who my user was would be a lot easier. So we're gonna go borrow this too. This is all Ubuntu, which is, I think, most of dev container, but certainly not all of it. So one thing I'm going to want to do is we'll start it with just Ubuntu, and then eventually I'd like to go back and make it at least Ubuntu and Alpine. I don't know that I'll do the work for Red Hat, but if folks in the EL, Red Hat, Fedora space want to participate, they're welcome to do it. We should relatively be able to support operating systems. And one of the frustrating things is a lot of this stuff is super boilerplatey. It's basically install a package, configure a file, which is often the configuration file for the package we just installed, and then start a service. And so, like, these three things are super common sort of in the old infrastructure as code tools. And yeah, I find it a little bit sad that we're doing this all in bash again. But we can like Puppet or Chef would be complete overkill. So if we can just get the package file service pattern in this, then that will be my goal. That's I'll put this up here. So the goal is to implement package file service. The package file service pattern from sort of like across Ubuntu and Debian, and I'll make this bigger for y'all. And Alpine. Patch is welcome for so that is going back to like what we'd like to accomplish. So it's really interesting. I wonder, I'm trying to think. I also don't want to do magic that the user's not going to expect. Just partly why I don't like the common utils is I feel like it does a lot of magic. And this feels like magic, although it's probably a workaround for the way that users sort of don't know that they can impact the path by setting the path in the dev container environment variables. And so, yeah, my guess is this is something that we want to do, but we're not going to do it right now. So I'm going to go back to mine because the other one I wanted to get was the one that I use a lot. Oops. Scripts. Just check for string. So I think this is like the most common yeah. So there's another, if we go look at, we're going to go to dev containers contrib. So there is this, this project called Nano Layer CLI, and let's see who's doing it. Daniel Brown. And it does a bunch of things, like you can install from a GitHub release. And so it actually reaches inside of this. And it shows how, you know, the goal here is to keep the layers smaller. So if you were to do this in without nano layer, for example, just to install htop, and then you nano layer install the htop, the difference is 22 megs versus 1.6. And so this is a pretty cool script. It's written in Python, and they use it for their dev containers or their features, like basically everywhere. So if we go look at one of these, any of them will do, I suppose. So we can go look at Ansible maybe. So the library script does this clean download function, and it's written for, so this is one that is written for both Ubuntu and Alpine. So if you've got make sure that you get, it's pretty wild, because what it's doing is if you have curl or wget installed, it'll install it. It won't install it. If you don't, it'll install it, and then when the script is over, it'll uninstall it to make it as small as possible. But it needs it in the beginning, so that's it's really super interesting. But this is how you would, see if we can find where it actually. So all of that is the library, and then when they use it, they pull in library scripts. They ensure nano layer is installed, and then for them, they go ahead and install this. So it's really interesting. This is installing. So nano layer is installing another dev container feature, which its whole job is basically just to install pipx packages, and it's installing Ansible core at a certain version. So it installs another dev container feature, which then handles installing the feature that you want. So it's a little meta, but let's go look at another example. cosine binary. How are you doing this? So the library script, so that library script is the same script everywhere. Make sure that nano layer is installed. This is a slightly different version, so you can tell that these aren't always updated because some of them are using 5.0 and this one's using 5.3. And this uses another dev container contrib feature for GitHub release, which then installs the 6-door cosine binary using this. So he's almost using GitHub, or sorry, dev container features like reusable functions, which is probably closer, I guess, because it's bash inside of a container. So he calls it, then he passes in these variables with this option, and then it does something. So if we go look at this GitHub release, let's go see what this GitHub release. So here's that option. We go look at this. So get the release tag, get the asset tag, get the lib name. And then use nano layer to install the GitHub release. It seems super meta because like you've got nano layer everywhere, so why call out to a function if you already have nano release? Why wouldn't you just use nano release everywhere? Yeah, anyway, so that's a high level sort of view on how we want this to work. Let's check on this thing. It's definitely still not started, which is unfortunate. Well, that is, I think that's what we're going to do for today. Definitely took a little wind out of the sails, but we will be back next week, and I will do a little bit of homework to catch up to where we would have gotten today. But next week when we come back, the goal will be to replace this curl script with a feature and write a feature from scratch, and not have to whether you use nano layer or we use something else, like not have to do curl, and to build that into a repeatable way that if we've got, we'll probably want to think about the GitHub release. That's probably something that we'll want to install from. We'll probably want to install certainly from packages in apt and APK. I think that's probably enough for the beginning. If folks have other things that they'd like to install from, we can figure it out. I'd like to keep it to where we're installing from things that are best practice and relatively safe. So unfortunately, f of x doesn't do signatures. So maybe we will add signatures as a open source patch so that we can get the checksums and or do cosine and get the binary signatures, whatever works, and then we can go from there to validate that these are the right installs. So thank you very much for joining. We're gonna wrap the stream up here, and then I will see you next week on Tuesday for more building a helper file for dev container. So thank you very much.